Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Isaiah Donaldson, and I'm the marketing specialist here at DISYS. Today is So You've Moved to the Cloud. Now what? If you would like to find out more information about DISYS and the services we provide, please visit our webpage at disys.com or one of our many social media pages. We have muted everyone, so those who have questions for our presenters, we encourage you to ask your question via Twitter with the hashtag #NowWhatWebinar. For those who do not have Twitter, you can post your questions in the chat box located in the GoToWebinar panel towards the bottom. Our presenter today will be Ahmar Abbas, VP of Global Services.
Thank you, Donald. So our topic today is about cloud computing, and most of the folks have actually been involved in cloud computing now for several years. But the real question is it actually providing any benefits to the people that have actually moved to the cloud? And that's what we're going to explore in our session today. Just some to frame it up from a contextual standpoint, almost 93% of about 1,100 IT executives that were surveyed last year said that they were using the cloud, and they sort of broke it down into people that were using the public cloud versus the private cloud, and then a combination thereof. This number about 4 or 5 years ago was probably in the 50% range. You've seen a pretty substantial adoption, or at least acknowledgement of adoption over the last couple of years. The other sort of interesting aspect that sort of pops out is that people aren't sort of shunning their existing platform. They want to be able to use their existing investments in their data centers while at the same time adopting cloud and the public cloud specifically as a form to enhance their overall technology capabilities that they are delivering to their internal constituents as well as their external constituents. What we've also seen is that cloud adoption is really uniformly across all industries. So whether they are federal government or on the higher ed side, small business, large business, very, very large enterprise, global enterprises, we see sort of adoption across all of them. At the same time, we also sort of see adoption across different types of applications as well. Storage and being able to sort of find a place and a cost-effective place to store a lot of enterprise data seems to be a pretty popular use case for the cloud. We've seen messaging and collaboration primarily through SaaS-based cloud platforms. And the one that we sort of talk about the most, and the one that sort of gets a lot of publicity, is really the compute power and being able to get on-demand infrastructure from different providers at any given point in time. And that seems to be a sort of pretty popular use case across the enterprises today. But really, if everybody sort of agreed that they are using the cloud, they're going to use it for different applications, how do we really know, and what type of questions should we ask to figure out whether the companies are actually getting the benefit, and are there different ways to sort of explore enhancing the benefits that your cloud implementation can deliver for you? So the first question really is, how do I know if I'm utilizing my cloud investments to their full potential? And again, like we mentioned, 93% of the IT executives out there are saying that they're using it. They're probably spending some money on it. They've got resources allocated and team members allocated that are focusing on it. But how do you sort of measure that it's really impacting the business for their enterprises? So one of the things that we've been doing is actually looking at the impact of cloud on the number of applications that an enterprise has. So, is it really changing the nature and portfolio of applications that the people are carrying, and does cloud sort of play a role in that. And that sort of will allow us to sort of extend sort of beyond the traditional marketing benefits associated with cloud, like, hey, it provides you agility, or you can save some costs on your infrastructure side, but really sort of look at measuring how it's impacting the business. So one of our customers that we've actually been working with for over the last 2-3 years has about 8,000 enterprise applications. And we work with them to actually look at those 8,000 enterprise applications and sort of categorize them. And one of the categories that that sort of was identified was really case management applications. So anything that, any application that's sort of interacting with constituents. It's a ticket-based application, and across this organization, they had about 80 of them, and we were actually able to move almost a pretty large chunk of those 80 applications onto a single cloud-based platform. The advantage that they actually got out of this transition was a real being able to add agility to the environment, because now it's not 80 different applications, 80 different programming platforms, essentially doing the same thing. So getting large economies of scale on the single platform was able to accelerate the number of features they could roll out to their constituents. But most importantly, getting everything under one data structure was really the big sort of bang for the buck as we transition this organization into the cloud. So as you look at your cloud implementation, one of the things you may want to consider is what is really the impact that the cloud has had on the application portfolio and landscape that you started out with and what it is today. If you're finding that while you have on-demand infrastructure, while you may be using software as a service components, you may also be using a platform as a service cloud environment as well, but your applications are still sort of proliferating, you're not sort of getting economies of scale, then while you may have sort of shifted the underlying technology within your organization, you've probably not impacted the business as substantially as you could. So again, one of the things to look at is to look at the impact of applications and how they've sort of fared within your enterprise since you moved to the cloud. The second question that we asked ourselves about whether we're getting the benefit of cloud is really how is it sort of helping us unlock what we consider to be the value of the enterprise data. And that's probably one of the most interesting use cases and where you see a lot of efficiency that can be driven by the cloud implementation as well. And even in my earlier slide, if you looked across industries, storage and sort of the back end management of data was one of the key applications that pretty much across all the enterprises they were focused on as they moved to the cloud. So we call it, not only unlocking the value of enterprise data, but looking at sort of, are there new ways that I can use my data? And now that I've sort of moved it into a cost-effective platform in the cloud, I have sort of on-demand computational capacity. I can sort of slice it and dice my data in many different ways. So what new things can we actually do with it? For one of our customers, we actually worked with them to move what were sort of 10 or 12 pretty disparate data sets onto the cloud. And they were all associated with sort of processing mortgages. So the entire process of sort of underwriting to sort of packaging up the loans, sort of getting them distributed out so the market could actually buy those loans, and then sort of going back and reissuing additional loans. That was a pretty complicated process, a lot of back-end data, and then also the data tends to be sort of fairly dynamic. If people's credit histories are changing, that sort of has downstream effects on the actual portfolio of loans that have been developed. So It was a pretty interesting application that we had the opportunity to work on, but in that we actually leveraged pretty much all the different components that are available on the cloud as well. So utilizing MapReduce capabilities, utilizing sort of transactional databases, utilizing NoSQL databases, sort of attaching all of those to sort of workflows and transactions. And at the end of all of that, we were actually able to really come up with new models and accelerate the process on sort of identifying of somebody wanting a loan all the way to it getting packaged and sold out into the market as well. And that was really only possible because of really the on-demand components that are available in the cloud. And I wanted to say not only possible, but only possible in a truly cost-effective manner. So as you, again, look at your investments in the cloud, one of the things that you want to consider is now that you have this on-demand infrastructure, now that you have the ability to utilize native cloud components that are associated with processing large and complex data sets, have you looked at new ways that your organization can actually utilize that data that's now available and can be sliced and diced in different ways? The other thing that we sort of think through is as we go towards large-scale cloud implementations and integration into our existing operating models is really around automation. And this is sort of nothing exclusively new in the cloud. Automation has sort of been important in your existing data center environment, in other aspects of processes. But what cloud does is really gives you something that in the market is known as FDE, or cloud is basically software defining everything. So your load balancers, your routers, your switches, your security, the way that you can request additional compute capacity, the way that you can request additional storage capacity is really all software defined. And the real sort of analysis that you need to do is how well are you using these software-defined capabilities now that you're in the cloud? And are you actually sort of getting the benefit of the ability to sort of programmatically access all the assets, or are you still in kind of the old way of sort of manual environment establishment and setup, even though you may be setting those up in the cloud? Now again, this is like I mentioned, this is nothing new. Back in the 90s, we used to have sort of networks that we sort of wired them, and they were pretty hard-coded. And then somewhere in the mid-90s, the whole sort of concept of VLANs came around, and these are really essentially software-defined components of assigning particular network elements together in a virtual way. So it was sort of a pretty big change back in the 90s, but in reality, software definitions and automation have been with us for many, many years, and most of the organizations have sort of been working with them. Now, whether they're working with them in a structured manner or not, it sort of depends on the company, but the technology has always been there. From a cloud perspective, the ability to sort of access everything programmatically has just quadrupled. Pretty much every asset that's out there can be programmatically accessed. So here, the way that we've actually looked at and worked with our customers on making sure that they're getting the benefits of automation is to define something that we call a factory-based approach to automation, which is automation is not something that you do one time. So you go into the cloud and you're setting yourself up in the cloud. That's when you say, look, I'm going to look at the ways I can utilize the software-defined components of the cloud, build some automation, and then sort of walk away. In fact, the way that we are looking at sort of really optimizing cloud deployments for our customers is making sure that the automation aspect of it is pretty consistent and stays during and beyond sort of the initial cloud setup as well. And that includes constantly looking at processes that are currently manual, doing the automation associated with that, doing the analysis, and then sort of going out and building those automations and sort of continuing to do that over and over again. That's sort of one of the important ways that we've not only seen cloud be successful, but we've actually seen a pretty dramatic reduction in the operating costs associated with the cloud. Initial cloud implementations, while they did reduce capital costs, it was very difficult to kind of pinpoint a substantial reduction in operational costs if the automation capabilities were not fully leveraged during the initial deployment. And so the factory-based approach that we've deployed for many of our clients tends to make sure that there's consistent benefits and impact to the operating expenses associated with deploying cloud in your environment. The other sort of aspect of automation that a lot of our clients have looked at, and we've had the opportunity to work with them, is on looking at automation and going beyond the infrastructure side. So we know that you can write to APIs and launch systems and acquire storage and configure cloud-based networks, but sort of taking it beyond that and seeing if you can completely tie it in sort of a continuous manner to the application side as well. So we worked with some of our customers to integrate various tools that are out there, whether it's Visual Studios or Jenkins or Ansible, bring them under a consolidated sort of platform, and then be able to then also integrate it to another cloud-based platform called Slack, get immediate notifications on the changes that are happening from a cloud perspective, and then get those recorded into a channel as well. So again, looking at automation sort of beyond infrastructure is also important, because once you do have software-defined components available to you, you want to be able to see how much of the entire sort of process, in this case, the entire SDLC process, that can be automated. The cloud component here is sort of pretty straightforward. We've got the staging systems that are virtual machines on sort of public cloud. We've got production system, in this case, being on an on-premise cloud, sort of bringing it all together into a consolidated, automated platform has really helped optimize and really get the most out of the existing cloud investment that our clients have made. The third question that we wanted to look at is see if our governance plans that we set up are still applicable. One of the things that happens when you have a completely on-demand environment where you can just write and point and click on a button and launch hundreds of servers or systems or acquire lots of storage at really a point and click manner can then lead to server sprawl. At the same time, specifically with SaaS-based applications proliferating out in the market, you can actually have, and you do have currently, business units going out and procuring those applications themselves and using them successfully, but without sort of bringing them under the fold of traditional IT controls and IT governance plans. Now, there is sort of a level of risk that needs to be measured at all times when you do that. But at the same time, you want to make sure that the benefits that the cloud is supposed to deliver, whether it's scalability, flexibility, usability, increased performance of applications, don't get curtailed because you are sort of putting a lot of strict governance and control around how people within the organization leverage and access the cloud. Over the years, initially a lot of the cloud investment was made by line of businesses or the business units themselves. And over time, it's started to come together where there is a lot more traditional governance and control put in by the IT organization as well. And that's primarily more as a protection scheme to make sure that there's no unintended vulnerabilities or other sort of holes that enterprise has been opened up to because of utilizing SaaS-based or other cloud applications. So what we've actually done is sort of step back and said, look, it's very important to manage the risk. It's equally important to make sure that you do get the agility and flexibility that you need in and the benefits that you get out from a cloud perspective. So what can be done that sort of balances both of those things? So one approach really is to look at service catalog as something that kind of drives the governance mechanisms within your organization. And what the service catalog does is it allows you to sort of go through an exercise with your business partners or your constituents to make sure that you are proactively determining what their needs are, building sort of your own services around them, and then sort of publishing them out to your end users. And this is sort of a proactive step, which is sort of building small teams, understanding the immediate requirements for each business unit, cataloging them into pretty defined technical as well as business requirements, and then proactively proposing one or more cloud-based solutions for our customers. The catalog also sort of becomes pretty important because one of the other trends that we're seeing in the market is sort of the whole concept of having multi-cloud environments. So not only are people saying that we are going to utilize the cloud, but at any good point in time, we want to be able to pick and choose which cloud platform that we will utilize. And sort of having a service catalog-based approach that says, for these categories of requirements, these are 2 or 3 types of clouds that you can utilize. For sort of very data-intensive requirements, here's sort of a defined catalog of services that you can utilize. And again, the intent for building the governance platforms and using the catalogs is not necessarily to curtail any agility that cloud brings to our customers, but to make sure that there are no unintended vulnerabilities or unintended risks that the business has taken on. We've noticed, and they're being sort of extremely public, impacts on what happens when the controls are loose or weak. We've seen major hacks in large retail organizations. We've seen sort of hacks or sort of broken down processes in public sector organizations that have really, really impacted the business. So our approach, again, and the one that we've been working with our clients is not to come with sort of a very constrained-based approach, but to actually look at their processes, build the catalogs, and then define the services associated with meeting those requirements from a proactive basis perspective. So finally, another question to ask is, well, how do you determine, kind of the running costs and the operating costs of the environment, and how do you sort of make sure that you have the benefits that you expected purely from a cost perspective being delivered to you? So what we've worked with our customers on is making sure that there is a baseline that's extremely well understood. And in the past, it was fairly difficult to establish those baselines, but over the last 4 or 5 years, there's actually a lot of tools out there that are in the market that are available that can give you fairly good baselines. So starting with a baseline, breaking it down into its real sort of components, whether it's a baseline compute cost, storage cost, networking cost, and having that available to you is sort of the most initial important task that we take on. Beyond that, it is then sort of an exercise of coming up with optimal pricing models or optimal clouds that you would utilize once you establish your baseline. And again, the good part now is that a lot of these exercises that we were in the past doing manually and spending a lot of time on looking at system utilization, looking at network consumption, also looking at licensing schemes. A lot of these things are now automatically captured through different tools that are out there in the market, and we can actually get down to making real-time, almost real-time adjustments to the consumption of the resources as well as the costs associated with those consumptions as well. So for certain clients, the granularity can actually go to a level where we are deciding whether we're going to use spot-based licensing schemes for infrastructure that we acquire from a cloud provider like Amazon, or do we use more long-term pricing models, or do we use on-demand pricing models? And again, the optimal plan typically is a combination of multiple things. For certain applications, specifically our batch-oriented applications, where we do have some level of flexibility on when they can get completed. So we are looking at spot-based pricing to get the best efficiency out of the cloud environment. Now, all of this is also tied to what we had talked a little bit about earlier, which was making sure that the software-defined component, the automation components are being fully leveraged by the organization. Because once the automations are in place, any changes that we deem necessary to get optimal pricing can actually be automatically executed instead of requiring any manual interaction from our IT departments. So as we sort of wrap up this particular session, I thought I'd sort of summarize the roadmap or the potential roadmap that you would build out as you look at your existing cloud investment. The first step is really to assess and evaluate the impact cloud has had on your application portfolio. Now, in many cases, the impact is not necessarily measured in purely reducing the number of applications, but it can be measured in increasing the utilization of the entire application portfolio, because now it's sort of become more accessible and easy to utilize by the constituents. So again, first step, look at the existing portfolio, see if there has been a substantial impact based on implementation and cloud-based implementations. If not, then that is sort of an area of further investigation. The second aspect is, once you've gone to the cloud, have you really unlocked the value of enterprise data? If you've gone to the cloud and you have SaaS-based applications and you have on-demand infrastructure that's available to you, but even after sort of all those investments, you've not been able to leverage all the different data sets, being able to either use them for some level of basic or sophisticated analytics, or as basis of offering new products to your internal or external customers, then you probably have not sort of leveraged the cloud to its fullest capabilities. The third area, again, is to look at the automation impact. And we cannot stress enough the importance of building out your cloud investments, or going back and looking at your existing cloud platforms and coming up with your level of maturity in terms of automation. We've seen a lot of people sort of say that they are in the cloud, but what they've only done is taken a particular application that was hosted in a data center. Now it's hosted on a virtual machine in one of the cloud environments, but it still has literally no automation in place. It still has no automated failovers, no backups that are leveraging the core native components of the cloud environment. So again, it's extremely important to consider that as well. The other aspect is really on the governance aspect of it, and we talked a little bit about making sure that the constraints around governance aren't set up in such a way that it basically turns people off from utilizing the platform. So being able to come up with a proactive portfolio-based approach where you are going to the business unit, building out the catalog for them, using the catalog as a governance mechanism is a better approach that we've seen, where you are getting the agility, you're getting the performance, you're getting the flexibility of the cloud, but at the same time not exposing the organization to any unnecessary risks that are out there. And finally, from an overall cost and investment perspective, it's very important to understand the baselines, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to capture the baselines, but we do work with our customers and recommend that you actually establish some level of baseline, even if they're not as accurate or as fine-grained as you may want them to be. But only then can we sort of look at and see if you're getting, and there are opportunities to optimize costs. And today, a lot of the optimization that happens is through other tools. So there is not a lot of manual efforts and analyzing spreadsheets and looking at sort of utilization charts of your servers. Those are all completely automated and can actually deliver pretty powerful results if executed properly. So with that, we will open it up for some questions. I do see one or two questions. Donald, do you have any, or would you like me to go first?
No, I don't have any.
So the first question that I have is, can you suggest some names of tools for cloud cost optimization? So there are a few tools out there in the market that you can sort of bring into your existing cloud environment that will suck in data from both the performance data from your systems as well as billing data from your cloud platform, and then give you sort of results and analysis. Cloud Checker is one of them. Sort of a Cloud Health Manager is another tool, and there are quite a few others that can be utilized for that purpose as well. The next question is, can you suggest, or what would be optimal approaches to building a hybrid cloud? Or I guess the other way to phrase it, how can you optimally integrate your existing data center investments with the cloud environment? And so that's a pretty common question that we get, and we tend to address with our customers. One way to actually look at your initial sort of cloud environment is to have a use case-based approach. And a use case-based approach says that my existing environments that are production environments will stay on my on-premise account and or on my on-premise environments, and then based on use cases, I will burst into the cloud, or I will utilize the cloud assets, and that in combination will be my hybrid cloud strategy. So I could host a production system on-premise, and then my DR component would be located on an off-premise cloud-based environment, and that's sort of how I create a hybrid type solution. The other approach that we've seen is where people are sort of calling it a hybrid environment, but they're actually moving certain applications, primarily public-facing applications, into the public cloud, and then keeping the rest of the applications within their on-premise environment, and then sort of considering that as a hybrid approach as well. The other area and the other way that people are sort of building out hybrid approaches, whereby they're leveraging their existing investment, is through bursting capability. So if anything that requires additional capacity, that sort of gets launched into the public cloud environment, while sort of the core applications, the core databases associated with the applications are still resident in the on-premise environment as well. So now those were the two questions that I had. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So thank you, everyone, for attending. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email or call me at the number. We will be sending out the presentation to everybody that attended this webinar. Thank you.